والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Today we have a very special program about a topic that we actually breached about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, where we spoke about the importance of foster care and reviving this idea of taking care of orphans and bringing people into our homes, not just from our own community, but outside as well. And subhanAllah, it was, we went through many different considerations from a fiqh perspective, from the jurisprudence perspective, from a perspective of virtues. Often, the only time you hear about the virtues of taking care of orphans is in the capacity of fundraising. And I think that because of that, we often miss the comprehensiveness of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in that regard, that taking care of an orphan is not only that. Of course, that is better than not doing other things. So sponsoring an orphan financially is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we should all make sure that we do and partake in. But going beyond that to actually giving them another chance at life, giving them the loving touch of a parent, giving them that feeling of siblings, giving them as much as you can some sense of normalcy when they lose everything. And I think that this topic is becoming more and more important in our community than ever before. We lost our beloved brother Salim, rahimahullah ta'ala, for example, in Irving. Not an old man, not someone who's physically unfit, and who died in his sleep just a few nights ago. May Allah have mercy on him, and leaves behind 4 children. These types of stories are becoming more common in our community, where you have sometimes the sudden death of a parent. In our own community here in Valley Ranch, we've experienced some of those types of deaths, people that are young, people that are in their 30s and their 40s, that suddenly pass away and leave behind many children. So it's important for us to really take up this sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in any way possible, not to mention the amount of orphans that are being left behind due to conflicts in different parts of the world. So it's a global tragedy as well as a local tragedy. And when I say local, I don't just mean the United States. I mean here in Dallas in particular, we have many situations that are arising where it's become important for us to take this up. When we look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is just something that I'll go back to, and I want to reference, if you go to yaqeeninstitute.org, the notes from last year, the entire lectures, as well as the notes from last year where we went through all of the virtues and all of the fiqh is there. And inshallah ta'ala, you can download it. It's been not completely transcribed, but almost transcribed, where you can find all of the notes where we talked about issues of jurisprudence, issues of concern, and things that typically hinder Muslims from undertaking this type of effort. And alhamdulillah, what we find is that our jurisprudence is very flexible. It accommodates, especially when you have a good like this and a necessity of this sort. There are ways around some of the complications. They may be difficult at times, but obviously when you're going to take on a task like raising a child in your home, you should be willing to undergo some of those things, inshallah, to make sure that we're keeping things within the bounds and the parameters of our orthodoxy, while at the same time fulfilling the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in the spirit of caring for orphans. So reviving the sunnah starts with us. We would like to see ourselves, inshallah, here in Valley Ranch in particular as a community of firsts, a community that takes the lead on some of these things. Today's lecture is very special, today's panel is very special in that we go through the practical considerations. So we've gone through the virtues and the jurisprudence, and for many people, it's now what? Alhamdulillah, we're blessed to have Sister Sarah Haider with us again. Welcome back to our community. And she went through many of those concerns last time, but inshallah, we'll go even further now with our panelists to really understand how we can undergo or undertake this process. I hope that everyone that's here is interested in actually becoming a foster parent themselves. And I hope that everyone has that niyyah, that intention. And if you're not, I'm not telling you to leave. I'm just saying that let's develop that intention, inshallah, if we can. And also educate ourselves so we can educate others. Someone cut the mic then. All right, the battery needs to be replaced. All right, in the meantime, while the battery is being replaced, we should be educated about these things. There are a lot of questions about them so that we can educate others. So alhamdulillah, we have a distinguished panel with us. We have Sister Sarah Haidar, who's on the board of Cultivating Families, which is a Houston-based nonprofit. It's working to equip communities of faith to meaningfully help foster and adoptive families thrive. We have Brother Sayyid Masood. He works for American Airlines as a project manager for flight operations and legal. He leads ICNA Dallas's Muslim foster parenting wing, which has been established in 2012. So his family has completed all of the foster licensing classes and processes in 2014. He's also now a certified Dallas CASA advocate and currently handling a case in Dallas County. So he'll be able to provide some expertise as well. And we have finally Saria Abraham, who's a faith-based Starla? Okay. Starla's her name?
Yes. She's not here yet.
Is it Saria? Okay. She's not here yet, so hopefully she won't be mad about us not knowing her first name. So either Starla or Saria Abraham, based on the two different sheets that have been provided to me. In any case, she is a faith-based recruiter for the Department of Family and Protective Services. So as you can see, our panel will help us go through some of the practical considerations. Inshallah ta'ala, at the end, we'll have a Q&A, and I'll participate in that Q&A as well, so that we can, if we have to review some of the issues of jurisprudence and concern, then we will be able to do so. So first, I would like to bring up Sister Sarah Haidar from New Star Kefala, who again is on the board of Cultivating Families, and she can go through the subject of why foster care for Muslims, and then she will be followed by Starla Abraham. We'll talk about how to get licensed. That'll start at 3 o'clock. And then at 3:20, Brother Sayyid, is it Masood or Sayyid Maqsood? Masood. So I got a Sayyid Maqsood on the other one. So Sayyid Masood, Brother Sayyid Masood will talk about alternatives to fostering. And then we'll have our closing remarks and Q&A. So we anticipate finishing, inshallah, by 4 p.m., inshallah ta'ala. So we'll try to stay on time. I know that everyone has a busy weekend ahead of them. We'll try not to hold you all beyond the time allotted. So first I'd like to invite Sister Sana. Jazakumullah khair.
I can stand or I can sit?
It's up to you. What do you prefer?
Okay. I think I'll prefer to stand.
Okay. You can.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. That's fine. If it has battery issues, I have my own battery issues. So I'm okay. Thank you so much. I would like to have a conversation with you because I think we've done the presentations, we've done the demonstrations, we've done the statistics, and we still have certain issues that we need to address. So interestingly enough, something showed up on my Facebook feed this week, and it was a plea from ICNA Relief in New York, in Nassau County, looking for Muslim foster parents for a sibling group of 2 children. And it showed up like it was today's news, and it ended up being something that came up 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, we had a situation come up in New York where there was a Muslim sibling group needing a Muslim foster home. Right now, there are children in New York, there are children in Dallas, there are children in Houston. These are 3 cases that I am personally involved in and working with, where there are Muslim children in foster care, and there are no licensed Muslim families for them to go to. And every time, you might remember that there was a news item that went viral in March of this year about a sibling group of 3 children in Virginia who were supposed to be Muslim. Their mother had passed away, and CPS was going to place them for adoption and split them up. And every Muslim had a problem with that situation. So at that point, New Star Kefala, I'm the associate director for New Star Kefala, and we took it upon ourselves to do something about it. So what we did initially was take each WhatsApp message, each Facebook message, each text that we got, and actually follow through. How many people who forwarded those messages actually called those numbers to figure out where that number rang and who answered that call? Very, very, very few. So it turns out that I got a total of 6 different names and numbers and all of them happened to be 610 area code. Do you know where 610 belongs? It's not in Virginia. In the final scheme of things, I found out that it rang in a foster care shelter in Reading, Pennsylvania. 610 is a number for Philadelphia. It's not for Virginia. Those children were not Muslim. The mother was not dead. Her parental rights had been terminated. But somehow, somewhere, somebody distorted a piece of news. And I talked to the caseworker, and she was thankful that somebody was actually looking to check the facts instead of spread the misinformation. So I told her that New Start Kefala will take responsibility for stemming that tide, stopping that viral fever, and addressing the facts of the case. And as a result, I basically ended up spending 4 days of my personal time because that was not part of New Start Kefala's charter at the time. So after 4 days of day and night answering texts, emails, WhatsApp messages, and a friend of mine, somehow her phone number got circulated as part of those messages. And she was getting insane number of texts and phone calls. And I told her that I will never forgive her if she gave out my phone number because I didn't want those calls. But they could email me, and I could log their names into a database of interested parties. But I would challenge each and every family to go and get licensed. If they want to be part of the solution, that is the solution. You know, as a community, we do not have the right to point a finger at non-Muslim families that take those Muslim kids in. Why? Because they're open to receiving the children and doing something about it. They are providing the home, safety, and love to those children. Every time you point a finger out, you have 3 fingers pointing back at you. So we should be thankful to the families that take in Muslim kids because Muslims don't open up their hearts and homes to accept those children. And those who have the desire say that they have the desire, but they don't Google. They don't go a step further and look up what it takes to become involved in the process. There are solutions in the community. There are agencies that have been set up with the charter of providing for these children. So the Department of Family Protective Services in Texas is responsible, and CPS, and I'm sure Ms. Starla Abraham would have a lot more to add on this than I do, but the Child Protective Services is a subset of the Department of Family Protective Services, and it is their primary charter to act in the best interest of children who are removed from unsafe home situations. And their primary objective is to safeguard the long-term best interest of the kids. If the long-term best interest of the kids is not served with being reconciled with their biological families, then the court and the department work together to figure out what's best for those children. And in some cases, the best interest may be served by termination of parental rights, and for those children to be placed through adoption into another home. There are circumstances that create unsafe situations for children in homes. Sometimes those are issues that we as a community don't want to acknowledge and respond to. There is abuse, there is accidents, there's people who don't have a support system, and if something happens health-wise, some sudden death, some medical situation, somebody is incapable of taking care of their children for whatever reason. It's not the children's fault that they ended up in state care. Why do we as a community put the kids in a place where they have to be the ones to bear the burdens for the sins of others? Whether those are sins or accidents, there are circumstances beyond the children's control that land them in state care. So as a community, we need to wake up to the fact that this situation is real. Muslim children are ending up in state care. What are we as a community going to do about it? That's why we're here today, to address why foster care, Why Muslim community? Why now? Right? Isn't that the reason we're here? We had a very detailed fiqh discussion about a year and 4 months ago, and it was tremendously knowledgeable for everybody. But where are we going with the next steps? We learned the fiqh, we understand, we have addressed the misperceptions about the whole process. There are people who would, I remember my first time having a public awareness session at a masjid in October of 2014. And within the first 5 minutes, one lady got up and basically yelled at me for distorting Islam, for spreading misinformation, and practicing bid'ah. She made her statement, she yelled at me, and then she walked out of the room. I wish she had given me a chance to at least have a conversation. You can't just stand up, pass judgment, and walk away. You have to be willing to engage in dialogue. And when you engage in dialogue, something beautiful happens. What happens is that sometimes you learn something that you may not have known. When I looked into adoption almost 14 years ago, I didn't know it was possible. But mashallah, my oldest daughter is here. I am the founder of Pakistan Adoption Group. She is the reason Pakistan Adoption Group was started, because I spent 8 months in Pakistan adopting my daughter. And then when I came back, I was like, I learned so much in this process. I don't want it to live and die with me. I want to share it with other people who are possibly in a similar situation and can benefit from it. So alhamdulillah, I did that for almost 10 years in a volunteer capacity. And then 3 years ago, we started New Start Kefala, which is the first Muslim adoption and child advocacy agency. So now, 3 years into the journey, we are finding that international adoption may be our bread and butter, but it is not the end of our responsibility to the community. When we say we are here to act in the best interest of Muslim children, we have to step beyond international adoption from orphanages in Morocco and Pakistan. We have to start with our own backyard. Alhamdulillah, charity begins at home. What's happening at home is what we need to be looking at. We just, during Ramadan in Houston, we did a Suitcases for Foster Kids drive, and the community supported that tremendously, and we had about 350 plus suitcases that we collected and donated to CPS. And some people asked, are these for Muslim children? And I said, when a child is removed from a home, that situation of unsafety does not discriminate, and neither should we. I did some effort towards flood relief in Houston last year, and that ended up being a major interfaith community building effort. And at that point, our slogan was, flood waters don't discriminate, and neither should we. So when we go into any kind of service for the community, we need to come at it from humanity. Because Rabbul Alameen is Rabbul Alameen. He's not Rabbul Muslimin. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent as a blessing for all of the world, not just for a certain segment of the population. And before I walk away from this conversation, I would like to remind everyone that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born an orphan. And he faced situations of moving from home to home very similar to what foster kids go through in their journey. Subhanallah, this was a kinship placement every time. However, there are people in this country especially where they don't have family in town or in the country even. They don't have a support system. So if something happens, if an incident happens and a child becomes parentless or homeless, what is the recourse? What is the community's responsibility in that situation? That's what we're here to address. Why foster care? Why now? Why is the urgency for the Muslim community? Okay? And at this point, I would like to see if there are any questions specific to this, or we'll address Q&A at the end, but I wanted to see if there were any questions at this stage. If not, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Darla Abraham.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I have gone to other mosques previously, and we start out the same way. Let me just do a disclosure. I'm very open and honest. Is that okay? So I'm going to tell you the truth, and then from the truth, you make your own decision. Is that fair? Okay. So actually, I am the faith-based specialist for Child Protective Services. So my job with Child Protective Services is to go out and work with faith-based organizations to help create partnerships and ministry, service, and missions based on the desire of the faith-based organization. Now, again, I'm going to be honest with you. Is that okay? A lot of our partners are Protestant-based. As the state, we reach out to everyone, and as the state, they ask us to go out and to engage other faiths so that we can bring in all faiths. Is that good? I have done this even before the state asked us to do this. And to be honest with you, we come together like this, we do the presentation, and then I'm told, we'll get back with you, we'll have this group and that group. I don't remember the proper names, so I won't insult you by attempting to say the proper name of the different groups and councils that would make those decisions. Is that good, everyone? They tell me that they'll get back with me, and eventually they don't, but it's okay because I understand. And then a few years later, someone else would get the bright idea, and they do a lot of hard work, just like these ladies did, and they'll get a group together like this, and I'm optimistic, so I will go back out to the group and present. And they say, we'll get back with you. And then I don't hear back. And so this time around, the churches had this huge summit. And they invited everyone, and they invited Child Protective Service staff because they wanted to honor them instead of demonizing them, which most of the time is what happens. They wanted to honor them and say, according to their faith, it is their duty to walk with them to protect the orphans and the widows. Is that good, everyone? So in doing that, my sister and colleague came, and on seeing her, I was nervous. Now, I have a sister and colleague that is of the Muslim faith, and we have been sister and colleagues for almost 14 years. And I am very comfortable with her. We have shared together. I have visited as not just a presentation, but I have visited with her as a guest. We have shared together. We have shared prayers together as sister and colleagues. Is that good, everyone? So when that sister came, I wasn't nervous for her. But when this sister came, I was nervous. And I remember looking over at her to see if she would be offended by anything. And she wasn't, because when you know who you are, in who you are, you can stand firmly. Is that good, everyone? And I saw that in her. So I said to her, I have been in contact with different mosques. I would love to work with you. She took it upon herself. Is that good, everyone? So now I'm here again, but this time I know I have a sister and colleague that is doing the work and that sees what's going on and that can express to you what the needs are. So I've been asked here to talk about how to get started as far as foster and/or adoption, how to become licensed. I'm going to share that with you, as well as I'm going to share other opportunities, because foster and adoption is not meant for everyone. It's not meant for everyone in the secular realm. It's not meant for everyone in the Protestant, Christian or Catholic realm, and it's not meant for everyone in the Muslim faith. Is that good, everyone? Okay, because we are all his children. Is that good? And all parents have some really great children, and then you have those other children. Is that okay, everyone? We all have the relatives that we have to explain. So we understand that. We also understand that there are other things that you can do, because the most important thing, and I'm going to stress this because I said that I would be open and honest with you. Is that good, everyone? The most important thing that you can do is to educate people. You don't educate them with just telling them. You educate them through relationship. Because in order to truly educate someone, you change how they think. And you cannot make any changes without a relationship. Because of my sister colleague, our relationship, she expressed to me and I listened to her, and I have a better understanding of the Islam faith. Not an expert, can't say everything the right way, so I don't say it, but I have a beautiful understanding of the core. Is that good, everyone? And because of that, when things happen on television, it hurts me because I understand someone is causing trouble. Someone is being blamed. Stereotypes are going out because they just want to create chaos and hatred. But I know better because I have a relationship. And because of that relationship, it makes me push past the junk. Is that good, everyone? So the most important thing is relationship. So we're asking you not just to consider foster adoption, we're asking you to consider getting involved to create those relationships, because every faith has something to offer. You all have a wonderful community, a very strong community that is also protective. Is that good? Because your community is protective, then we do not see a lot of Muslim children coming into care because your community is more close-knit and it's more protective. Is that good? How many other children may benefit from being part of your community even for a short while? Is that good, everyone? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because your community is just not made up of your place of worship. It's made up with your friends and your family. It's made up with your morals and your values. Teaching love and peace, not tolerance, but appreciation. Is that good? Teaching children to love themselves and to love others. Teaching them to work hard and to be proud over things. Children are open, and you plant seeds in them. And what is planted in them is what will grow in them. If you plant stereotypes and hatred, that's what will grow inside of them. If you plant a relationship that I was loved by a Muslim family, I was cared for by a Muslim family, that will grow in them. Even if they go back to their Christian home, they will have an understanding. That means that there will be more people in the world to stand against chaos and hatred. And people are doing it across faith lines. And I want to encourage you all to consider doing the same thing. You can take baby steps, but take some steps. Because we need you. Because you have morals and values. Traditional morals and values. That you can plant those seeds in children. Well, what if they don't become Muslim? Well, what if they dress more modestly? How about that? We would all love to see some of these teens dress more modestly. What if they learn the virtue and the splendor of being a woman? What if they learn the privilege and responsibility of being a man. Do we understand? You don't have to harvest everything. You can plant a crop. And that's what we're asking you to do. We don't want you to do everything, but everybody can do something, no matter how big or how small. For me, my God gives the increase. For you, your God gives the increase. For us, we are to be faithful and plant those seeds. Is that fair? And every faith I have gone to, we have core values. And in that core is unconditional love. That's why I don't believe the lies on television, because I know from my relationship with my sister colleagues, Islam is a faith of unconditional love. I see it in your families. I see it in the modesty of your women. I see it in the responsible and protectiveness of your men. Share that. Is that good, everyone? The first step in becoming licensed for foster and/or adoption is to find the right agency. CPS may be the agency for you. It may be another agency. Public agency is a government agency which is going to be Child Protective Services. All other agencies are private agencies. Some of them are faith-based. But you all can seek out agencies that you feel are a good fit. Okay? So, for instance, some of the churches, they have certain agencies and they work with 2 or 3 of the agencies. And they use those agencies to come into the church and to work with their people and to train their people and to recruit their people to become foster and adoptive. But as they train based on their biblical principles. Is that good, everyone? So you all can identify agencies that will come in and work with your group. And so as they train your families, you all can also teach them from your faith perspective. Is that good? You all understand what I'm saying? So, for instance, if I may, forgive me if I'm offensive, because this is the faith that I know is my faith. Is that okay? So, from my faith, we have a scripture that says, good and perfect religion that is acceptable is that to care for the widows and orphans and to keep oneself from being contaminated by the world. So that's the basis that we teach and encourage people to become foster and/or adoptive families. You understand what I mean? So you may have a scripture or pillars that say this is what you are to do. Is that good, you all? And that is how you train your people, because you don't want them to do it just because. Is right? They should have a passion. They should have a gift from above that has been placed inside of them that allow them to love and nurture and grow children. Is everybody with me? Some people have those gifts, some people don't. So for those that don't, then there are other things that they can do. So what some churches do is they have a group of people that may do meals. So if someone is fostering and they get that placement, then you have a meal team, and the meal team will take meals to the home, because when you get that first placement, it's not easy. So everything that you think is going to be perfect just kind of goes up in the air. But you have people, you have a prayer team, so you have a team that's praying for that family. You have a team that comes in with the meals. You also have a team that's trained and licensed so that they can babysit. So if something happens and the family needs to go or do something, then the children can be placed with those other families, for a short period of time. Is that good, everyone? So everyone plays a part as a community. So when we talk about your foster adoption services or mission, is that good, everyone? What's the good word? We say ministry. What's a good word? Program. Okay, so for your foster adoption program, you would have different teams, so everybody could play a part. But what happens is that when the children come, they're protected by the whole family. Does that make sense? So you have a family over here that's doing babysitting, a family over here that's praying, a family over here that's prepared to babysit. So the whole group is working together for this child. Is that good? All right. So you find that agency. Once you find the agency, then you start to recruit families to find out who's interested in becoming a foster and adoptive family. Those families sign up. A lot of times they'll do initial background check. Initial background checks are DPS checks, Department of Public Safety checks. So they'll go by the driver's license and they'll pull and see if anyone has any criminal history. So depending on the criminal history, the person may or may not be able to foster. If it's a tremendous felony, like a crime against a person, then that person would not be able to foster. Is that good, everyone? Okay. So if they pass the initial background check, then they continue with the licensing. That's going to consist of training, teaching about the different characteristics, behaviors of the children, teaching different standards for licensing and things like that. Blah, 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 blah. Is that good? In the midst of that, remember, you all are still teaching, this is why we do this. Is that good? So as that's happening, the last portion is going to be the home study. That's when the caseworker goes in and interviews the family. They will interview the family. Now keep in mind, all of this is virtually free. The only thing that costs will be out-of-pocket expense. So that will consist of FBI fingerprinting. That's the more in-depth background check. That's less than $50. Maybe a fire extinguisher. You may have to have a fire extinguisher if you don't already have a 5-pound fire extinguisher. That's a cost. Fire and health inspection, if that costs, then the families would pay for that out of pocket. Is that good, everyone? But you don't pay for anything else. You don't pay for the home study. The agency takes care of all of that. The most expensive thing is the actual home study, and that's done for free. Okay? So once the home study is done and approved, then you are licensed for foster adoption, and now you're open to placement. You all determine who you will have placed in your home. Some of your families say that we want our home only reserved for Muslim children. That's understandable. Your home will stay vacant. The worker will come and check on your home. Some of you will say, we want our home available to any child in need because we are going to minister, we are going to share love with that child. Is that okay, everyone? When you look at doing this as a faith-based community, you have to consider if that family fosters and the children come to mosque, they're going to be taught, but they're not going to be as behaved as your children are. They're not going to know what your children know. They have to learn. And it's not because they're not Muslim, it's because they come from hard places. Everybody understand that? So that's something that the faith family has to take into consideration. Is that good? I said I'll be open and honest, right? So when we have churches that are majority non-minority, and they say that they're going to have a foster adoption ministry, that church has to understand you're going to have minority children coming to your church. Are you prepared to care for them? like you care for yours. You're going to have children coming to your church from hard places. Are you prepared? And so we help teach for, some faiths, they have what you call Sunday school. So they help train the Sunday school teachers how to work with those children from hard places. Everybody understand? So wherever your children may be, if they're not with the family, then those people will be trained to work with children from hard places because they don't know and they don't understand, but we have to teach them or at least plant some seeds. Is that good? Everybody understand that? So honestly, those are things that you have to take into consideration. If this is a ministry that you all want, if this is a mission, if this is a service, a program that you want, you pray over it. And if it's something that you're going to do, you do it as a community, as a family. Because it's going to take everyone to do this and to be successful. Is that fair? So at this point, becoming licensed, not a big deal. Praying and determining that this is a mission that you will take on as a family, that's your next step. And if it is, then we will help find you the right agencies to work with you and to help build your mission, ministry, program so that you can be successful, so that you can plant good seeds in the lives of innocent children that are coming from some very hard places. Is that okay, everyone? And I'll be here for additional questions and answers. We have a recruitment department that will come out and work with you if this is something that you want to do. And again, we will also look at private agencies that would be willing to work with you all. Is that good? Because the first thing is to find the best fit for you, for your family, for your faith family. Is that good? And once we do that, then we build up your program so that you can be successful, so that you can positively impact the lives of children. Sorry. Amen.
Zishan, before you go, let me. Thank you so much, Starla, for that, because we really needed to see it from an outsider's perspective looking into our community. And I really appreciate you coming out and sharing that perspective with us. We are very, very blessed to have great faith-based recruiters. Now I know one in Dallas too. I've been working with the ones in Houston. It is great to have that level of connection and partnership between community and the Child Protective Services faith-based group, because they are the front lines of connecting all communities of faith with the children who need support. And there is a very strong initiative in the state of Texas to engage faith-based communities in this process. Before we go any further, and I know that Brother Zishan Masood is eager to share a lot more with you, I'd like to remind you of a couple of logistical things. We have a sign-up sheet that's floating around, and please, if you would take a look at that, share your contact information, look at the options on that grid to see what fits with you. What we're looking for is a way to connect with you, to have follow-up conversations on different subjects. So there's, I haven't seen the final product, but I believe there are columns for foster care, for respite care, and I would like to ask you to address respite care as well once I get, possibly in the Q&A session, because there's a big need for respite care providers, which is short-term foster care. Then there's a possibility for other roles, and Brother Zishan will cover some of those. At this point, I do want to take a few minutes to remind everybody to sign up, and also thank the partners. I apologize for being late, so I wasn't here for the beginning of this session, which was my prepared speech, and I now am interjecting myself into the program and making sure that we cover those. I represent New Star Kefala. I have had a lot of collaboration and cooperation from several entities to make this program happen. Alhamdulillah, we have ICNA Relief providing foster care support in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, thanks to Brother Azishan's efforts. And he's not the only one. He's leading the charge, but not the only one doing this. We are very, very appreciative of the Valley Ranch Islamic Center community for allowing us the space and the opportunity, the avenue to have these conversations. And at this point, I would like to present a small token of thanks from all of our partners to Mr. Brother Fuad Kuchinwala. Yes, if you would please. I understand that the board of Valley Ranch Islamic Center has been phenomenally supportive of this effort, and I really, really appreciate your role, brother, in this process. What we have is we have another partner in Houston, the Islamic Art Society, and Dr. Khaja Azimuddin, who is the founder of Islamic Art Society, had offered us a token of thanks and gratitude for the Valley Ranch Islamic Center. This is a mosaic that he himself has fired, and he wanted to present that to the Valley Ranch in anticipation of your new center coming up. So hopefully this can be part of the exhibit. It's hard to show. I don't want there's a 6-tile combination here that I don't want to. Yes, you can't. So what we're going to do is, we'll show the picture eventually. If anybody's interested, we definitely would like for you guys to see this, and I would like for you to say a few words, if you would. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. On behalf of the Valley Ranch Islamic Center, I'd really like to thank you and this beautiful gift. Inshallah, we won't wait till the new masjid is built. We'll put it up in this building, and then we'll make sure we find a beautiful space for it. We'll have it placed, inshallah, on a nice board. But we'd like to thank you and New Star Kefala for coming out and doing this really important program here at our masjid and selecting our masjid for the venue. You're providing a service and filling a gap in the Muslim community in North America especially that has been around for too long. So hopefully the more our community can do to help fill this gap and provide a service and an avenue for your organization to place children who need placement, then we would be more than happy and at your service to do that, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much.
And inshallah, we will continue these efforts in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is the first, not the last, masjid that we are going to be speaking about these things. And at this point, I would like to introduce Brother Zishan Masood, who is going to cover other ways the community can step up and help with the foster care process. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I think we have a small presentation to go with that, with Tahir. Anyways, I can give you a small introduction of mine. I work for American Airlines, and I've been told since I started working for the legal, I've become more rude and more honest and more straightforward. So I think that's a good thing. I don't. Okay. So I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. I think I'm gonna lay it out the way it is. Like it or not, that's the bitter truth. And we are all adults at this point of time, so we should be able to take a hard look at ourselves and accept our reality, where we are. If we cannot accept who we are, then we need to change that, right? So thank you very much, Valley Ranch, for arranging this program. Thank you very much, Sister Sarah and Sister Starlet, for covering that. And as Sister Starlet mentioned that fostering and adoption is not for everyone. But I would add to that there is something for everyone here. You cannot do 100%, you can do 70% of it. You cannot do 70% of it, you can do 50% of it. If you cannot do 50, you can do 20. You can do 1. You can do something, 0.01. But you all are capable to do something. It's not rocket science. It's not something that none of you are capable of. How many of you guys have attended this program before? MashaAllah. So majority has, this is the first time for majority of them. A few people have attended this program earlier as well. So I think between last year and this year, how much you have achieved in this manner. Okay, so I'm not going to compare what I have done versus what you have done, but what you can done in 1 year, just to put that in perspective. Just a second. But you need my password to open the laptop. Sorry about that, some technical difficulties as usual. So actually, I got involved with this foster care in 2012 when we came up with a case in Richardson. Since then, I've been advocating for foster care in different communities. And then I realized it won't work. It won't work until I will do all that I've been preaching for. And in November of 2015 in fact, I signed up for my own foster license. Me and my wife, we completed the entire license in class and coursework and everything in little over 6 weeks. And then we went for home inspection, background check, everything. In 6 to 7 weeks, it was all done. At the last minute, there was some policy change on the agency we're working with that at least one of the two parents have to have a US citizenship. And they didn't told us in the beginning, although they had every single piece of document we ever had, they missed that one. And we were not citizen back then, so we were green card holders back then, so we could not get a license and whatnot. It was a setback. We said, okay, that's fine. What else we can do? If I cannot be a foster parent, what else can I do to at least do my part? And I learned about Dallas CASA. Another 30 hours of training, and I got my Dallas CASA license in February. In April, I have a placement. I don't have the placement with me because I'm not a foster parent, but there's a child I'm mentoring as a Dallas CASA advocate. It's been 4 months. I've been keeping up with this child. I've been reporting for this child to the Dallas juvenile judge and managing all his needs and advocating for him. It's not a Muslim child. I don't care about religion because when Prophet ﷺ said on the day of judgment, whoever takes care of an orphan will be with me like this, that's where the statement ends. I do not see anything further after that. He never said about the age of the child, the gender of the child, the religion of the child, the time you spend with that child. Sheikh, you are here. If I made some wrong assumption, please do correct me here. He never specified you have to spend 8 hours a day with that child or 40 hours a week with that child to qualify for that. He did not. So in my capacity, I tried everything to have that child in my house. Because of my legal status of that point of time, I could not. The next thing is, I cannot give 100%, 70%, 80%, 60%, whatever I could. So I don't know if I qualify for that statement or not, but that's what my interpretation of that hadith is. He did not mention or specified anything else after that. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So either all or nothing is not the option here. And I challenge each one of you here. Tell me a reason that you think that makes you disqualified or not qualified for this job. I have a job for 40 hours a week. My wife works. I have 2 kids, third one on the row. I work with ICNA Relief as a foster advocate. I have other responsibilities with ICNA. And I work as a Dallas CASA advocate, and I represent Muslim Employees Resource Group at American Airlines. And there are a few things that I dropped here and there. So if I can do it, I think we all can do it. It's nothing. So I've been down this road in many communities many times. And after the event, we have a sign-up sheet, we follow up, and something or else came up, and we all fall through. So I think I have heard all the excuses so far. We use so many excuses to somehow get out of this. And we need to ask ourselves one simple question: why am I doing this? For me, the answer is because I want to be like this. On the day of judgment with the Prophet ﷺ, excuse me. If this is not a good enough reason for you to do this, then I don't know what it is. So if you cannot be a foster parent, there are other avenues, there are other options that you can. And one of them is Dallas CASA. I started working with Dallas CASA. Is it? Okay. So the CASA, C-A-S-A, it stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. It's, I would say, 1/10 of the effort it will take you to become a Dallas CASA representative. But in my decision, in my interpretation, I still qualify for that hadith. So I don't want to miss on that opportunity. Just passed 2 days back, Brother Salim, Sheikh Umar Suleiman mentioned about him. He passed away. He was only 42. He was sleeping and he didn't woke up. So none of us can guarantee how much time we have. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask where you spend that time. Every minute, every second of it. So there is a very tough accountability coming up ahead, and we don't know when. And we can't fool Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever capabilities, whatever resources, whatever strength He gave you, He knows very, very well. We spend 3 hours watching a movie at home, but we will not go there to complete our 2-hour classes or 3-hour classes. We go all the way across the Dallas-Fort Worth area to get the best baklava or to get the best biryani or whatever we like. But we will not drive to a placement agency office to take that class. Or we will not drive to downtown Dallas to have that Dallas CASA class. And most of those agencies are willing to do whatever they can to compensate you. I have spoken to some agencies. They are even willing to come down to your location if you have 10 families or more to offer the classes on your location. And there are several agencies who are willing to match your schedule, set up classes on the weekends as well. I'm not going to name any agency. You all figure out whichever works for you. It's your responsibility. As an adult, I cannot drag you out to take that class. I think the presentation is coming up. So there are avenues, there are options, and I have made a commitment sheet for you all here. And it says 28 ways to foster a youth. You can adopt, you can foster, you can mentor, you can advocate, you can volunteer, you can donate, you can educate. And at the bottom it says, a child enters foster care every 2 minutes in the United States. And this study was done by Adoption and Foster Care Analysis Reporting System in 2014. I want you all to have this, say yes, I will, and put a date underneath it, and paste it on your refrigerator as a reminder. So you can see that every day you made a commitment to yourself that you will do it. And then you can follow through the date, how much time have been passed, and you have not started it. The Dallas CASA training that I went through, I think it was only 4 weeks or 3 weeks, even less than that. And it is zero cost to you. Any of these services, whether you become a foster parent or you become a Dallas CASA representative, Dallas CASA volunteer, there is zero cost to you. Many agencies will even return your FBI fingerprinting cost, that $50. You will get it back as soon as you get your license. I spent $36 or something with Dallas CASA, and the week I got my certificate, I got a check from Dallas CASA that here is your $36 back to you. Any time that you spend, any money that you spend on this cause, Dallas CASA will reimburse you. Or you can claim in your W-2 as an expense. So there is zero cost to you. It's only the commitment and the time that you need to provide for this. So, okay. So we all heard that story. That's not my job, right? This is a story that 4 people named everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody. And there was an important job to be done, and everybody was sure that somebody will do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry about it because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. Sounds familiar? I think this is our story. Here are all the characters in this story are here. So this is not one man's job to cover up for the whole community. Every now and then when there is a Muslim child placed in a foster care, as Sister Sarah mentioned, her phone goes off the hook. My phone goes off the hook. I got calls from India. Somebody who used to live in Richardson got this message, and he called me from India on WhatsApp that, Brother Syed, I know you have done this. Could you take care of these kids? And as Sister Sarah said, 90% of the story is wrong, because as it passes on, people add their own spices, their own touch to that, and it becomes something else. I mean, there should not be only one Brother Syed or one Sister Sarah to take care of the whole community, to care for the responsibility of the entire community. A community means when all people are involved together, for good or bad or ugly. So, what if I cannot be a foster parent? Well, if you cannot be a foster parent, you can be a CASA volunteer. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate, and Dallas CASA is a non-profit organization of volunteers. Basically, this organization is in your backyard in downtown Dallas. When a child is placed in a foster home, the judge asks Dallas CASA to assign a volunteer to that child. And at that point of time, if you have completed your training, and had your oath with the judge, you will be asked if you are willing to take that case or not. The good thing about this is husband and wife, they both can take this license and they both can take one case. So if husband is busy, the wife can keep up with that. If the wife is busy, husband can keep up with that. Even two brothers and two sisters and cousins and two people can partner together so that the responsibility become further divided between the two people. If you have a traveling job, if you travel, you can, and your wife can both sign up for that. And if you are traveling, she can cover the court dates, she can do the paperwork, she can do all the visitation and whatnot. And in that, when you come back, you can take your part, and whatever is remaining, you can fill in, inshallah. So what do children gain from having a CASA volunteer? Basically, CASA is an advocate for this child. Once the child is placed in a foster home, whether Muslim, non-Muslim, I don't gonna get into those details, you at least have the access to the child. You have the court order. The judge gives you a court order. On behalf of that court order, you can talk to the medical providers for that child. You can talk to the teachers of that child. You can visit him or her at the placement. And above all, you represent his rights in front of the judge. So when the hearing is, there is a 14-day hearing. Initial hearing is called 14-day hearing, and then as the case progresses, there are further hearings. You can advocate for that child where the best interest for this child is. You have the voice. After listening to everybody, including CPS workers and other advocates and whatnot, the judge asks you, do you have a recommendation? And you complete a court report before the court hearing. So judge will go through by your court report that you have prepared, and you mention your recommendation for that child. It's such a powerful role that you are directly providing your feedback to the judge, who is going to make a decision on what's going to happen to this child. And as a Muslim, we need to get involved in the system before blaming the system that it's destroying families and whatnot. I have learned so much from this. I have learned how many players are involved, what their roles are. Before you get a full-time foster parent, if you are scared of the commitment and whatnot, I think this is an ideal starting point for you all. Yes, brother, you have a question?
So the question is, this particular statement apply to the kids who are under their biological parent into some abuse conditions which are legally, I think, challenged in the court, or if they are separated based on the, some abuse cases and the court has separated them with their biological parent?
So once you come into play when the case is already open, when the kids have already been put in the foster placement.
So he's legally separated, right, based on
yes.
the abuse? Okay.
So you are the only person who is, correct me if I'm wrong, you have the right to meet the parents and the foster parents and the advocates and the judge and the CPS worker and everybody. So you are the constant between all the parties. So you are the connecting point between every single player in the game, including the kids. So that way you have the most valuable insight. And plus, when you are talking to a judge, you are talking to the person who's making the decision directly.
Just for clarity, is it something in the process is already in motion that separation is happening between the kids and parents, or is just somebody filed a case and the parent says, no, there's nothing like that,
Okay, so let's take a step back, how the case starts. Sister Stala, you go ahead.
When there is a referral of possible abuse and neglect, then it is investigated. If it is found true that there is abuse and or neglect, then CPS will try to work with the family, or they will try to, while they're working with the family of origin, to rehabilitate them or to correct the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The children might be able to stay in the home, but more than likely, maybe they'll go to a kinship, a relative, or a friend, And if that's not possible, then they will come into care. But usually the cases that go to court become criminal cases because it is true abuse and neglect, and the families must complete services to show that they will be able to change the behavior and to safely continue to parent the children. But when it goes to court, they will give the children an attorney called the guardian ad litem, and they will give the children a CASA worker, a court-appointed special advocate. So as the court-appointed special advocate, his focus is the child, because the family has one viewpoint, foster parents may have another viewpoint, the CPS worker, but his whole focus is the child. And when it comes down to it, because he belongs to the court, he's the court's appointed special advocate, then his say carries a long way with the judge. So he's looking at things. And if I may say this, it is important, it's imperative for you all to get involved, because it's too many people that do not understand how other people live.
Exactly.
And so being that advocate and understanding how other people live, you make a great difference between a child that should be with their grandparents being separated from their grandparents.
So
Is
the
that fair?
CASA advocate role comes when the judge basically decide, okay, now we are appointing a CASA. Okay.
So just to give you a little bit of background, what sister said here, many people live differently, and as a melting pot this country is right now, since we are not exposed to the other communities, everything looks odd to them. One of the cases in 2014, I believe, mid to end of 2014, was a brother in Plano. I'm not going to give you more detail. It's a secrecy issues and whatnot. A 3-year-old was trying to pick up a 9-month-old brother, and she fell down. And the baby broke his femur or some other bone. The mother took the child to the hospital, emergency care, and the doctor suspect foul play, and she reported CPS. There was already a case in the past for that family because the 3-year-old is very skinny, and they thought it's a neglect case. That case was closed, but it was in their history. So as soon as other report came in, everybody jumped the guns and opened a new case, and both the kids were removed from the hospital and placed in the CPS custody. And then very next day I had a visit with my pediatricist, and I discussed with her, and that day she wasn't there, so the senior nurse was there. She was 66, 67-year-old, and when I told her this, and she said, I totally understand what you are trying to say. All the charts, the growth charts, the pediatric growth charts are for American kids. They grow with a faster rate, they have a heavier body structure as compared to Asian kids. You guys have narrow and thin bones as compared to American kids. And that's why the fracture happened, probably. And she said, the young doctors come to me whenever they suspect someone has a chicken pox. The chicken pox has been eliminated from United States long time ago. So all these doctors have never seen a live case of chicken pox, most probably. What they have seen is a picture in a textbook in their 2nd year or 3rd year of medical school. So they cannot tell if it's a chicken pox or not. So they come to this 67-year-old senior nurse and ask her if this is a chicken pox or not. If that doctor does not have this 67-year-old nurse available, he will suspect everything is a chicken pox that looks like a chicken pox. That's what happened in that case. So if you are a CASA representative in that case, you can write in your court report all that we just talked about. This is not an American family. The charts, medical charts, are based on American kids' growth pattern, not Asian kids' growth pattern. So you cannot judge this kid is underweight or malnutrition based on the charts you are looking at. You have to see the family he's coming from. These kids are not fed on bottled food, most probably, so they are not gonna be fat and tall and bulky like other kids. So your charts are wrong, that hence the case is wrong, and the child should go back to their family. That's what your role, if you would have been a CASA volunteer in that case, this would have been your recommendation to the judge, and any judge in the world will see what you're advocating for. And this case would have been resolved on the first 14-day hearing, and you made a difference right then and there. But if this case would have been handled by someone who is not exposed to this Desi community, he would not consider that to compare the case versus the medical growth pattern that we have in this country, child growth patterns. So that's one example that I think should be enough to make us understand why this role is that important. So are CASA volunteers trained and supervised? Yes, there is a 30 hours training, initial training, all provided by Dallas CASA in downtown Dallas. Usually the trainings are 6 o'clock till 8 or 9 o'clock. They do have some weekend classes as well. You do not have to complete all classes at once. If you have a tough schedule or something, you can take one class in one batch, and as soon as you are available, you can take the next class in 1 month, 2 months down the road, and so on and so forth. But the schedule is very, very flexible. There are multiple sections going on. So you attend one class in one session and the second class in another session, and so on and so forth. There are a total of, I think, 9 classes. So 3 weeks, 3 classes a week, and you can be done in 3 weeks if you go with a fast pace. After that, you have, the first year you don't have to have any additional classes, but after that, you have to maintain your license, you have to have 12 hours of continuous education. I believe 4 hours you can take online, and 2 classes you have to take in person over there. Once you complete your classes, the background check, the fingerprinting, all those things, you will get reimbursed by Dallas CASA for all the cost you put in. There is no home study, no home inspection. In case of a foster parent, as all adults in the house have to go through background check, it's not the case because the child is not in your custody. It's going to be with some other family, but you will have access to that person. So only background check or fingerprinting is required for you. And the next, what kind of person is a CASA volunteer? So it could be anybody who's over 21 and had no felony charges, no felony on his account, no FBI. I mean, you just have to go to FBI clearance after you complete your coursework. You could be a single, you could be a family. Even if you are a student over 21, you can do that, even as a student. And why I'm saying that as a student? Because you don't work alone, especially on your first few cases. You work with your CASA supervisor. So if you cannot attend the court date, the supervisor will attend on your behalf. And there is a portal, there is a website for Dallas CASA where you share your notes, and you can call your supervisor for everything. He will or she will go with you unless you tell them, I don't need your supervision anymore. So you're never alone, you're never, you don't have the entire burden. It's 1/10 of the work you have to do, but I still call you qualify for that. Correct me, Sheikh, if I'm making mistakes here, inshallah. So how much time does it take to be a CASA volunteer? It's on their website, when the first initial introduction that you have with them, they ask for 20 hours per month, 15 to 20 hours per month. It's been 4 months since I am advocating for this child, and I don't think I spend more than 5 hours a month. Only when you are preparing the court report, it's something you spend hour and a half, because you have to document all the facts and stuff like that. A visit, it depends the child will be in Dallas County. So you are only working in the Dallas County if you are a Dallas CASA volunteer. If you are a Tarrant County volunteer, then you are covering the Tarrant County only. So you are not crossing the counties either. So that child has to be in Dallas County. So from one end to another end, it should not be more than an hour drive. You only have to visit that child at least once a month for 1 hour, so that you see how he's developing in the house, how's the foster parent taking care of this child, is there any special need for that child. You document all those things for your court hearing. So after 14-day hearing, there's a 3-month hearing, and then so on and so forth. You do keep a check on the parent as well. If the court has assigned them some services, if they are going through those services, if they are completing those services, you motivate them. If they need some help, most of the situation where they are lacking a small thing, their car broke down, they could not complete that service until their car is fixed or whatnot. So being such a strong community, alhamdulillah, we have ICNA car donation program. We have ICNA, so many other programs. You can talk to ICNA, and ICNA will see if we can donate a new car, used car to that parent. That's what I've been working for my case right now. So you can help the parent to get their coursework, to get their child back as well, if that is the best interest for the child. So you are trying to reunify the families. So you are working on multiple directions. You can, as a CASA volunteer, you can resolve this case in so many positive ways that will be not possible with, I mean, I don't see any other role in this whole scheme of games where you can work with each parties and try to do your best to make that party successful in this foster system. As a foster parent, you are taking care of the child only. No contact with the biological mother or biological father. So if even they are trying to do something to get the child back, you can't help them because you don't have access to them. But as a CASA volunteer, you are doing the right thing for every single player in the game. So as I mentioned, you have 8 to 10 hours of court hearing per year, which is, I think, exaggeration. The court hearing is 15 minutes. The judge is not going to give you more than 15 minutes. Yes. And inshallah, so as a Muslim, we know what's in for me as a community for getting into this foster system. So as a Muslim, we no longer have the luxury to sit back and do nothing. As the saying goes, if you are not at the table, you are on the menu. As a CASA volunteer, you work with the juvenile justice system, the DAs, the judge, the lawyers, the policy makers, so that when the policies are getting developed, you are being consulted. Not today, maybe 5 years down the road, some of you will be on the board of directors for Dallas CASA if we continue to work with them, partner with them as a community. We can show our existence in where it matters most. You are meeting the judge. When I got my certificate, it took the judge a few attempts to pronounce my name correctly. And I don't have a difficult name. Probably she never saw a Muslim name before. So, and the second thing is with you wear your religion. We are one of the few communities that carry a religion everywhere we go with. Our sisters wear hijab everywhere they go. Our brothers wear beard and kufis and whatnot to tell them, yes, we are a part of this community. At American Airlines, we had a orientation session with Dallas CASA, and the videos they showed, it was Hispanic families, black families, white families, and that's about it. And after that session, she asked me, do you have any recommendation? And I told her, where was my people in this video? Are we not affected by the system? And she said, yes, that's a good suggestion. We'll edit those videos so that we'll show Asians and others, and Indian and Pakistanis and Bangladeshi and everybody else, that this is for everybody, not just for people who grew up in this country. Because now we are all part of this melting pot. And the last thing is, I think Albert Einstein said that the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. So if something happens to a foster child, a child in a foster care or in an abusive family, abusive home, and he lost his life or something, we are equally responsible for that. Because we didn't move from our couch. We didn't do nothing to save this child. And just last year, I think, Dallas Casa has an event where they hang all those clothes, those kids who lost their lives in abusive homes or in foster home abuse. I think 18 of them were there. I don't know the exact number, but they had clothes for those 18 kids with their name, date of birth, and some more information. So there is abuse. Alhamdulillah, in our community, you don't see that. But in other communities, it's much higher. As a Muslim, it's not just protect our own community, it's for everyone. You have to protect every single one. Forget about your religion, because I don't believe in that. Prophet ﷺ never mentioned that only Muslim child will be in your foster care. Then you qualify for my judgment. So, Jazakumullah khair. I think I took too much of your time.
Jazakallah for that very, very helpful, very detailed discussion on how you can engage even if you can't take a child into your home. And at this point, I would like to open up the floor for questions. We have index cards and pens around. If you have a question, please send it through one of the volunteers on either the brother side or the sister side. We've got some questions here. And okay. So what we will do is I will put the questions that have been identified as for Ms. Darla Abraham, for her to address them first. And then we're going to go through what the other questions as they come up. We'll figure out who needs to answer which question. So if you don't mind, I'm going to sit down. And it seems like this is a question for both of us. If somebody is in H-1B visa and are not U.S. citizens, thank you, they want to foster or adopt, will we be able to do that? I don't believe so. As Brother Zishan mentioned, you have to be, at least one of the couple have to be a U.S. citizen. So in that context, you won't be able to, but there are ways for you to engage. And when we talk about, I think, we didn't put the list of the things here? Okay, so okay, so you have the list of the ways each individual can get involved. I don't think this is gonna be applicable, but we'll take a look. Is it mandatory for both husband and wife to be a foster parent or CASA worker? For a husband and wife to be a foster parent, yes, both have to attend the training as well as go through the background checks. But for a CASA, that is not a requirement. It is a convenience if you and your spouse are both CASA and you can work together as a team on a group of children or a child. Sometimes you have sibling group that is assigned to one individual because that's considered one case. But you don't have to be partnered with your spouse in order to become a CASA. Let's see.
Specifically, where and how do we get certified and licensed, and how do we know it's a valid agency? When I Google, I get all the information you gave today, but no answer to this question. If that's something that you're looking to do individually as far as becoming licensed, then you can attend an information meeting. You find those information meetings at adoptchildren.org, adopt, A-D-O-P-T, children.org. And you can click on About Fostering, and it will lead you to a website that has a list of information meetings. You don't have to RSVP. You choose whichever meeting is most convenient for you to attend, whether it's location, date, or time. Attend one of those information meetings. That's your first step in becoming licensed. If you are wanting to walk through this journey with your faith family, then they will help you identify agencies. Again, I'm going to be open and honest. I would use your experts up here to identify an agency, because you want an agency that's going to be the best fit for you. They just passed a law saying that agencies can deny families based on faith. So use your experts to identify your agency so that you have the agency that's best fit for you. Is that good, everyone? That agency helps to advocate for you, they help to direct you, and you want that to be a good experience, and you want to know that that agency understands what your goals are. Is that good, everyone? Okay. Up here. Respite care. Remember when I talked about babysitting? That's considered respite care. So, respite care, foster care is temporary. You love them and you let them go. Adoption is permanent. So if you adopt them and they're 6 years old and they are cute, great. When they turn 16 and get their license, they're still yours. Is that good, everybody? Very good. Okay. Respite, you know when they're coming and you know when they're leaving. So respite, it can be 8 hours, 4 hours, 72 hours, no more than 2 weeks. That's respite care. And for some agencies, you go through the same thing. Other agencies, you don't go through as much. Like for Child Protective Services, you get the background checks, you get CPR. And what's wonderful is that if you're going to foster or adopt, you can have a friend or a relative get licensed or certified for respite. So they can come in and keep the children, or the children can go to their homes as usual. Is that good, everyone? So it's, you know when they're coming and you know when they're leaving.
Sister Starla, most of the people are confused between adoption and fostering. And the way I explain to them is fostering and adoption is like buying versus leasing. Once, exactly. So leasing, you have restriction of miles, restrictions of things you can do, and so on. At the end of the day, when the lease is over, you have to turn the car in. Same with fostering. You have a lot of things that you have to obey because it's a lease. It's not adoption, right?
It's a time-based commitment, right?
Exactly, exactly.
So does that mean we know when the child is going back with fostering, or is it dependent on the case?
Yes. It depends on the case with fostering. Fostering is temporary. It's supposed to be temporary care. So families have anywhere from 6 months to 18 months to try to work their services and get their children back. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, sometimes parental rights are terminated. Now, if parental rights are terminated and there's no family members or friends that step up and say, we'll take the children, honestly, CPS will come to you and ask you if you want to adopt the child. And if you say, no, I'm just fostering, we appreciate it, we thank you, we ask you to help us prep the child for adoption, and then we start to look for an adoptive home. The other thing I want to mention is when you foster, then you receive reimbursements. It's not dollar for dollar reimbursement, but it's anywhere from $20-something a day or higher depending on the level of care, but it's about $20-something a day per child to help cover expenses. It's never meant to be an income because we cannot pay you for what you're doing, but it is to help offset expenses. When you adopt through the foster care system, if the child is over the age of 2 and a minority child, then the child qualifies for a stipend. So you will receive a stipend up through the child turning 18. Any child that is adopted outside of foster care receives free state tuition up through a bachelor. So that child can get a bachelor's degree with no state tuition, as well as there are tax credits for fostering and adopting. If you adopt through the foster care system, if you paid for your FBI and fingerprinting, if you pay for this, that, and the other, then it can be considered a it's a non-reoccurring expense. So that is given back to you once your adoption is consummated. So adopting through foster care is virtually free. So even if you pay $1,200 for the consummation, that is given back to you, and we have attorneys that will do it for you and never charge you and automatically charge the state. So it's not a heavy financial burden, it is a heart burden. Is that good, everyone?
One more question.
And in fact, you get a Medicaid card for this child.
Yes.
So there is no medical expense.
Right. All of their medical, counseling, all of that is paid for. You are responsible for food, clothing. They get clothing vouchers. We are a silent parent. CPS is a silent parent. Is that good, everyone? Yes. Yes. They get child care CCMS. So sometimes there is a 2-week or more gap, and so you have to cover that. But a lot of times, daycares that accept CCMS, they are familiar with this and they're familiar with the gap, but you're still receiving the reimbursement. And you just show that you work 40 hours a week.
One more question. So when you license, and then, so it just comes case by case, that this is a family, this is a case, do you want to take it up, or can you set some parameters, like these are the ages that we are looking for?
Yes.
The kind of.
Yes, absolutely. So you set the parameters for your home. Your agency works with you. So you say, we feel, first of all, let's say you have 2 biological children.
Okay.
You can't have more than 4 foster children, because you can't have over 6 children in your home if you have enough room. And enough room is a bedroom that is at least 80 square feet, 8 by 10. It can't be less than that. 2 children can share that bedroom. They can share bedrooms with your biological children. No child shares beds.
Okay.
Yes, they have to have separate beds. Uh-huh. Is that for your, oh, okay, okay. So for gender, it's 5 and under, 6 and older, then gender share bedrooms together. If a child is turns 18, then that 18-year-old cannot share a bedroom with a younger child. Children can stay in foster care up to age 22. So let's say you guys are fostering a teen and you get that teen at age 16. They're doing well, parental rights are terminated, no one has stepped up to adopt this child, and they're doing, it's a good child, no one's stepped up to adopt them, but they want to go to vocational school and they turn 18. You're willing to allow them to continue to stay. The state will continue to pay reimbursement to you and pay for that child to go to school. this is my first session, and a lot of terminologies are being thrown out at us. Absolutely. Is there a more structured organization chart that will provide an organized understanding? If you find one, tell me.
I can help with that.
We do that
yes.
all the time. Child Protective Services, court-appointed special advocates. The biggest thing is understanding fostering, which is temporary, adoption, which is permanent, respite, you're helping out, biological or family of origin, which is where the children come from. There's some other things that I said. I said kinship, and I tried to use the word friends of family, which mean kinship. So let me say this is important. Let's say a Muslim child comes into care from this mosque. If the child comes from this mosque and is in care, then a family from the mosque can be considered a kinship or a fictive kin. You're not a blood relative, but you know the child and or the family before they come into care. That is kinship. So even if you have a neighbor or anyone that you are familiar with and their child comes into care, you can be considered as a resource or a placement for that child. I think that's important to understand that.
So the point of fictive kin is that it is somebody that the child already knows and is familiar with, or the family knows and is familiar with and can trust them to take care of the child. So the idea is to keep the child in as familiar and safe and comfortable environment as possible. And in that context, there's a couple of questions here. I want to address the fostering questions first. I am getting a lot of questions about adoption as well, but I'm going to keep them till the end. So we want to address the fostering related subjects first. This is a specific situation. My coworker's sister's son had a baby recently. CPS was called on the nephew and his wife. None of the family want to take care of the baby. Can she foster this child? That would be a situation that possibly qualifies for fictive kin if the family knows.
So what we have done, faith-based is different. So there is a huge push for faith-based. Faith-based is different. We had a church congregation that had some children and a family. They took it upon themselves to try to help them. When they contacted Child Protective Services, we worked with the congregation to help the family. So there is also something called family group decision making. So in this situation, if the family wants you to be a resource, then the family can tell their caseworker, we have someone that we would like for you to consider as a placement for this child, especially if the child is Muslim. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you have to
They
have.
can, not at first. Eventually, because we're talking about two separate things. We're not talking about a foster family. We're talking about someone, Yes, okay, yes. It's called fostering connection. But it'll take a while for that to kick in, and she'll have to go through the licensing process for that. So what she's talking about and what we're talking about, kinship. If you know the child and or the family, and the family wants you to care for the child, then the caseworker can come in and do what's called an assessment on your family and approve you as a placement. Is that good? And that's different from fostering. That means that they've approved you for this one placement only. Is that good? Okay. So that's the difference. Yes, ma'am. That one's not fostering connections. That's a kinship or fictive kin. That's when you know the family and or the child, and you all can step in and the family can say, we want them to care for our child. Because CPS will allow families to make voluntary placements. Now, when she talked about us helping financially, then they have to go through the licensing process, because before, we would pay strangers to foster and we would not help family. And families were struggling trying to keep their relatives from coming into care. And so now we take them through the licensing process so that they can also receive support and financial support just like foster families.
So sister, is this a complete process? I mean, you have to do all the coursework, all the trainings, and all the background checks, or if you are part of family, there's a shorter route for you?
It's the same route, meaning families, you go through training and you go through assessment, but they allow a lot more waivers for families than they do for regular foster families. That's up for debate, because they're saying that the children have experienced some type of trauma and family members need to also be trained and supported properly. Yes, ma'am. What about kids that already have a family? I think family first. So if someone already passed the background, done the home study, is to go to adoption or kinship for the children. We agree. If I read that correctly, we agree. And so what happens is when we have a case and a parent who's in trouble sometimes have already isolated themselves from the family because they are ashamed or they've been ostracized because they're not doing what they're supposed to. And so when they get in trouble, they don't want the family to know, so they won't tell us. And when they find themselves in court and see that, okay, my child is going into substitute care, then they may tell us about someone. But what we try to do is get that family to come together. And when we say family, it can be friends, it can be, we have pastors, y'all have imams can come, and other leaders can come, and they sit together and they do a meeting. Everybody signs a confidentiality form. And so with that, they share information about what's going on, and based on that, everybody come together to decide what's going to happen in the best interest of that child. So a family and friends, a faith family, can come together, surround that family, and really have some control over what happens to that child.
Would it help to have, in a situation like that, would it help to have a lawyer represent the family, or just the community of faith surround them?
Just the community of faith, because it's a CPS person, but this person's main job is to facilitate between the family. These are steps and programs that we take first to allow the family and the community to stay in control. Because the further we get into the process, and once we go to court, the family loses a lot of that control, and we all stand at the mercy of a judge. So even if CPS is for the family and a judge says that they're going to terminate, there is nothing CPS can do. So we do everything we can to keep the control with the family and the community.
So one very important thing over here to understand is, once the case is in the court, no one has the power to do anything except the judge. Now the family is coming out after 15 days or 16 days, time's up. It's up to the judge. He's not waiting idle to handle your case first. There's a long queue of cases, and everything is scheduled as per the availability of the judge's time. It may take you 3 months to get your next hearing. It may take you more than that or less than that. So it's all on the availability of the judge and the availability of court time. So it's very important when something like this happens, the community step up as quickly as possible to settle the case before it gets to the court. Once it's in the court, you can't really do much. You have to wait for your time to get your hearing dates and stuff like that. Right, sister?
So, the question about the 6 children, CPS was under conjunction, and under that, it was stated that we can no longer place children in group homes. Group homes consist of more than 6 children. So because we can no longer place children in group homes, if you already have 6 children, even though you have room, you cannot foster. We used to do that. It was needed because sometimes we have sibling groups of 6, 7, and 10 children, and trying to, keep them together was important. Unfortunately, I'm open and honest, there were people that were using this to make money. They were cashing $13,000, $14,000 checks. They had the children put together in there. A lot of children died. Some died at the hands of other children, because they were not caring for the children properly. They did not have proper supervision. And that was one of the things that came up against Child Protective Services, and they said that we can no longer do that. But it did not apply to families who were trying to help keep sibling groups together. Is that good? So, but there are other things that you can always do. And there was another one about more than one agency. You can only be with one agency. The reason for that, agencies hold a license, okay? That agency approve your family or verify your family for foster and or adoption. So the agency, if something happens with the agency, it closes your home down because only the agency can keep your home open, okay? And the important thing about that is that the agency is responsible for your home. Anything happens in your home that's non-compliant, the agency gets dinged for that. So you can't be with 2 agencies because they can't both be responsible for your home. You can scope out multiple agencies, but you will select one. And your experts up here will help you because some of you are interested in adoption, some of you are interested in foster, some of you are interested in both. The agency has to have a license for what you want. If you want to adopt, you cannot go to an agency that only does fostering because they can't license you for adoption. If you want to foster, you can't go to a straight adoption agency. If you want to do both, you have to go with an agency that has a license for both. Is that good, everyone?
And there are extra requirements for different agencies. There are CPS requirements, and then each agency may have their own course requirement or may have their own requirements. They just want to cover them more legally. So they will, because they are liable for all your mistakes as well. So they will make you go through more courses, maybe less courses, but there's a minimum requirement set by CPS, and then things on top of that set by those agencies. So different agencies will have slightly different requirements to get you licensed.
Yes, those are called minimum standards. Minimum standards are Texas laws. So everybody has to abide by the law, but they can raise the bar. So the minimum standard is that you have to be 21. Some agencies require that you be at least 25. Other agencies evaluate your maturity. For respite care, that's going to depend on the agency that you're with, what type of training you go through. Most of the time it's a background check and it is CPR first aid, especially for babysitting. So let's say you have mom or dad or auntie that's available for you. They can get a background check, CPR, first aid, and they can come to your home and babysit the kiddos for you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what, most of everything is in English. You can have interpreters, but what they're asking for is that you be able to advocate for that child in cases of emergency. So there are people that are bilingual, but they are more comfortable in their native tongue. But if there's an emergency, they can converse in English in order to advocate for the child. That's okay. If you cannot advocate for the child in a case of emergency, that agency will evaluate your ability to keep the child safe. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Okay. Because in the case of emergency, you can't just get an interpreter. You have to be able to advocate. But being comfortable in your native language, that's perfectly fine. Is that good, everyone? Can a person start with kinship and once certified as a foster parent can change the status to foster and or foster to adopt so there is support from state? If a person starts out, say a kinship, they do an assessment and they place the child. For that particular child, the case can move forward to fostering connections. They'll send you to kinship. Kinship will send you to foster adoption development, and they can license you through fostering connections, but that is only for that one or however many children. It's just for that kinship placement. Is that good, everyone? So if you want to foster and you think you might want to adopt, you want to get licensed for both. The training is the same, but there are certain things you do for fostering and certain things you do for adoption, and you want to go ahead and do it all at once. Because if a child comes into your home that you're fostering, parental rights are terminated, and that's a child that you want to adopt and keep forever, you don't want to have delays and hindrances. Is that good? So those are things that you think about before you get started. But other than that, yes, you can go through additional stuff to have your home study changed if your agency is licensed for both. Mm-hmm. Do you have a list of children with age and details that need to be fostering? For fostering, no. Adoption, yes. Fostering, as they come up, that's done internally and it's confidential. So when if children are removed from their home and brought into state care, then we have a centralized placing unit, and the worker sends as much information that they have on the child to the centralized placing unit. Your agency submits your family information. If that family, if your home matches up with that child is between the age range your family is willing to accept, the gender or genders your child is willing to accept, that your family is willing to accept, so forth and so on, then you may get that phone call asking if you will accept this placement.
So secrecy is a big thing when you're talking about these kids, confidentiality. Even these are minors, these are newly born or whatnot, they do have confidentiality privilege. As a CASA volunteer, I cannot discuss my case with anybody, even with my wife. The file that I have on this child is in a drawer at my work. I don't take that file at home so that by mistake my wife will open and know anything about it, because you have to respect the confidentiality of this child, and it's part of your commitment. Whether you're a CASA volunteer or you are a foster parent, you cannot post their pictures, you cannot disclose where they are, who they are, and whatnot, because they all have their confidentialities, and you have to maintain that.
I have a question, like you said, do you have the list for the adoption
Oh,
of the child?
to see some of the children that are free for adoption, then you just go to adoptchildren.org and click on View Waiting Children, and you can just scroll through picture after picture after picture of children that are free for adoption. Okay, and just so you know, there's a process for everything. There's a process for fostering. It is designed to protect the child and to protect the family. It is designed to create a good fit between the family and the children so that your fostering and or your adoption will be successful. So we take that very seriously, and we try to go step by step, and there are times that you will be told no for adoption, and you're like, well, that child's been there forever, but that child's not a good fit for your family. Is that good, everyone? It varies. The process varies. It depends on how fast you get your paperwork in, how fast you get your certain things, and then your agency. It can be 3 to 4 months, it could be 6 months, it could be 9 months. A lot of times people like to say the same amount of time it takes to actually grow one and, you know, give birth can be the same amount of time. And at the same time, you're doing preparations. Okay, so let me answer this because I'm going to answer your question. Okay, so someone said that they tried to fill an application out online. I would never try to fill an application out online because if you go to Child Protective Services and fill out an application, it does not exist. It doesn't exist. So just go to adoptchildren.org or DFPS. It doesn't matter. It will automatically pull up, and it's going to direct you to TARE, T-A-R-E, Texas Adoption Resource Exchange, and it's going to always direct you to About Fostering or About Adoptions. Doesn't matter which one you click, because it's always going to take you to that list of information meetings. I would go to an information meeting, I would listen to their information, I would ask them questions, but I will come back to my faith family here, and I would ask my experts. I can only say that so many times. Get as much information as you want, but go through your experts. I will be open and I will be honest in a very diplomatic way. Trust your experts. If I eat fried chicken, I'm not eating fried chicken from everybody. I'm going to eat fried chicken from somebody I know cook fried chicken the way I like fried chicken. And I feel comfortable and safe eating their fried chicken. Is that good, everybody? Get your information, but come back to your experts. Just 1 second. So you can do the information meetings. That's for any area, as well as she can work with you to get you a number to agencies. My thing is, what I would suggest, and I can't do this, is up to your leadership. The next thing, and I think she mentioned it, is having an orientation. Have an orientation here and invite other Muslim families from around the area to come here for a foster adoption orientation. You can do that, and you can invite agencies that are going to be a good fit with your faith family. And then from those agencies, your families can identify the ones that they want to go with. Is that good, everyone? That is the best way to do it. I'm just being open, and there we go. Age. CPS does not have an age. Texas does not have an age on adoption. It is based on your ability to parent. So you will have an approval from your doctor saying that you are healthy enough to parent. Is that good? That's all it is. You don't have to make a certain amount of money. You have to be financially responsible. Is that good? So if you make $100,000 and you spend $110,000, you are not financially responsible. If you make $10,000, everybody in your family is well fed, and everybody's clothed and got shoes on their little feet, you are good to go. Is that fair, everyone? Yes, ma'am.
I thought they were going to help me get certified and all that, but they told me to come to this session. So
This session?
Yeah, so who exactly is the faith family that you're talking about? Who do I speak to?
Oh, when I say faith family, I mean your mosque community, your Muslim community.
But who exactly? Like, that's what I thought I was doing here.
Sister Rehabi, take this mic.
So, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Rihab. I work for Child Protective Services. I'm the one who met Starla and wanted to bring this to the community. I know we're all at different levels, but I'll be working with Starla and the community to find a good fit, a good agency for everybody, and that's when we'll go forward with this. Yeah, so we're passing around a sign-in sheet. Please make sure that you write your name, your information, everything on that. Brothers and sisters, that's how we'll be contacting you for the next step.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, because again, we want, can I open and honest, we want the Muslim faith family to join us. And we want to make sure you have a positive and successful experience. And in order to do that, you want to utilize your experts so that you all can grow in numbers, so that people will respect and honor you as part of this field, this movement. Does that make sense? Is that good, everyone? So we stick together, okay? And I'm going to tell this really quick story and we're done. This guy was on a train and the train was going slow. So he went to the conductor and he said to the conductor, "Can this here train," he said, can you go any faster? And the conductor said, "I can go faster, but the train can't." So we are going to ride this train together because you all are going to be successful, because the community needs you. Is that good? And we have to move as everyone else moves. Some of us are ready to go. We have to wait for everyone because we want you to be successful. We don't want you to go out there on your own and have a bad experience. We want to guide you and use the paths that they have already made for you. We all use the paths that someone else has made. And as we use those same paths, they become broader and more people can go through those paths. Amen?
Yes.
This and that, and be certified. So do you have a list for the organization?
That's what Rehab is going to provide to anybody who signs up and expresses an interest in foster care and adoption.
Yeah, good, because I have one organization I'm dealing with it, Strawberry Creek, you know, Strawberry Creek. They are eligible to certified any.
So please exchange information with Rehab.
Oh, yeah.
She's going to take care of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, at this point, I am going to turn the microphone over to Brother Zishan to address CASA-related questions.
Jazakallah khair. I have received a few questions regarding CASA. The first question I got is, do other cities across the US have a partner branch or similar organization like Dallas CASA? I think it is in all major cities. I don't know, it's basically it's about the county. Exactly. So it's about the county. There's the Dallas County office, there's a Tarrant County CASA office, and so on and so forth. So almost all major cities in US have a CASA office there. Can a senior citizen adopt or foster or be a CASA? Yes. Uh, yes, exactly. A lot of grandparents are in fact available for, first right fit as a kinship, and as a CASA there is no age limit. You should be able to have you have to have a valid driver license because you have to drive around when the court date is and so on and so forth. But other than that, the same requirements. Age does not discriminate against anybody. Can those who are here on visa do not have even a green card can be a CASA volunteer? Actually, I asked this question to my supervisor this morning because I was expecting this question. She told me she's gonna check with her director on Monday. So I can answer this question back on Monday. I have my business cards here. If you like, you can take that and just give me a text message on Monday, and I'll inshallah give you feedback once I get the response from her. Is there CASA in Collin County? I think there is. I'll get it confirmed because I know Tarrant County and I know Dallas County. I am pretty sure there will be one in Collin County as well. I'll ask my supervisor again, and I'll get the information if you need that as well. Yes, I do have my business cards. Unfortunately, I don't have my ICNA business cards, but I have my work business card. So you can send me, it has my cell number, so text me. Don't send me an email. Thank you.
All right. So we have more questions here for Starla. Can you please address this one?
If I understand correctly, have 2 adult children, but want to get 4 more kids through a kinship, and there are 3 bedrooms. So the adult children do not count as far as the number of minor children. So 4 children is fine, even with 2 adult children, because adults are adults and they don't count as children. As far as bedrooms, each child has to have 40 square feet. That's enough room for like a twin-size bed and a chest of drawers. If the room is 120 square feet, then at least 3 children can share that room. Same sex, right, unless they're under the age of 5. Let's say it's an infant, 2 or under, that infant can share the room with the caregiver. But as far as determining if you have enough room, the bedroom, the gender of the children, and the square footage. If it's 80 square feet, 2 children can go in that bedroom. If it's the master bedroom and it's 120 square feet, 3 children can go in that room. If it's 160 square feet, 4 children can go in that room.
So one more thing, you cannot convert your garage into a bedroom. There has
People
to be
have
a
been creative,
window.
yes.
Exactly. In case of a fire, there has to be 2 exits. So a door and a window. Otherwise, it will not qualify for a bedroom. Without a closet, it will still qualify for a bedroom. But without a window, it will not qualify for a bedroom. Yes, you
Yes,
can.
bunk beds are allowed. That does qualify as a separate bed, but sharing a bed is not. And in regards to this question where there are adults, the adults can be in the master bedroom and the 2 bedrooms for the 4 kids where the 2 girls share a bedroom and 2 boys share a bedroom. That is sufficient room for the family per the CPS guidelines. Okay, there's another question here. Does the same requirement apply to refugee families when a child, in case of a child who's abused? Does CPS step in? If there is a refugee family, actually this is a good question. Unfortunately, there are refugee families that come to the US and their way of living is not the same as norms for American behavior. So sometimes refugee families get in trouble with CPS because their children don't shower for a whole week or show up without brushing their teeth, and some teacher or somebody calls in and reports a complaint that the child is being neglected. Or if there is abuse in the home, then obviously that is a subject for investigation. Those children, when refugees, when they come into the US, they get their green card automatically. So they will be residents even if they're not citizens. If a child is from an immigration situation that is not a resident or a US citizen, but is in an unsafe situation, the child will be placed in state care, regardless. So this is an important enough question that I have to stand up and answer. But at this point, I'm gonna take all the adoption-related questions. I wanted to address the foster care questions first, so that we did not take the focus away from foster care in this session. Talking about the refugees is a little bit more complicated. However, when a child is in an unsafe situation, regardless of the immigration status of the child, they will have access to the same services through the state as a child who is a resident or a citizen, because the child has rights and the US system provides protections for the child's rights. At this point, I'm going to address the adoption-related questions. The first one is, if somebody's here on a H-1B visa, can they adopt internationally? No. International adoption is not allowed for other than US citizens. So at least one of the spouses has to be a US citizen in order to adopt internationally. Next question is, can we adopt kids from overseas? Do they have to be orphans? Yes, international adoption requires that the child be either orphaned or abandoned per USCIS guidelines. So if a child has been abandoned to an orphanage, which is recognized as a place for orphaned or abandoned children to be, then that child is automatically considered eligible for adoption. Private adoption is discouraged because there's too much room for child trafficking, and it is hard to establish whether the child is genuinely orphaned or not. So if both parents of a child are alive, that child is not orphaned. If the parents are unknown, then, but we don't know whether they're alive or not, that can be a consideration as an abandonment. So that child would be eligible to be adopted. How much time do you think CASA would occupy per week? Oh, this was a CASA question. As he mentioned, it says 5 hours per week or month? 5 hours per month for the court appearances and the connection with the foster child and family partners. So 5 hours a month is a very reasonable level of commitment in terms of your overall time. And most people working a full-time job and having families can spare 5 hours a month. How can the masjid community support foster parents? Okay, this is a very important question, and there is a very detailed answer that I would like to give. We will be working with the Valley Ranch Islamic Center. This is where my work with Cultivating Families comes into play somewhat. Right now, Cultivating Families is only working with the local Houston community. We just launched the nonprofit. We haven't even moved into our office yet. We got our license, we got our 501c3 certification in June, so we're about a month old. The idea is to provide resources, practical resources to the communities of faith so they can implement ways to support. One of those ways we work with communities is to create, this kind of congregation education and awareness events. Then we offer adoption and foster care decisions class, which is a 3-week program, 2.5 hours each on 3 consecutive weeks, where we walk our couples through each and every possible avenue for adoption or foster care, discuss the pros and cons, private birth mother adoption versus international adoption. Then with regard to foster care to adoption, and also refugee foster care comes into play. So that's a subject for another day. But then you have the parent support groups. You have activities such as training classes, parenting classes. Sometimes when you have children who come from hard places, they need a different approach towards parenting. The conventional parenting practices are not as effective in those situations. So we have ways, actually one of the best things this community can do is reach out to Tapestry Ministry at Irving Bible Church down the street. That is the center of a lot of the research and practices for foster care, foster to adopt. Texas Christian University has done a lot of research on children from hard places. Dr. Karen Purvis's work with regard to the book, The Connected Child, is the one that I would recommend everybody read if they're thinking about foster care. Also, Empowered to Connect is the program for training for the foster and adoptive parents, and it talks about connect before you correct. If you get nothing else out of this talk, for children coming from hard places, it is very important for them to develop the trust and connection with the adults in their lives. So as a foster parent, as an adoptive parent of a child coming from hard places, from foster care, you want to always connect first with the child, establish safety, establish connection before you try to correct their behavior. Okay, the next question was, would you recommend parents of young children or older children foster? Ideally, you want to be able to, if you have the room in your home and heart. So parents of young children, if they can see themselves making the time and commitment to foster, by all means. Every individual is different. There's no one particular spectrum. You know, every empty nester is not created equal. Every parent of young children is not created equal. But we really want to encourage our empty nesters who have a stay-at-home mom in certain situations. That gives a lot more stability to children who have needs beyond the short-term needs. It doesn't mean that only people who have a stay-at-home parent can foster, no. But sometimes, especially when there's older children, it is a good idea to have a parent who can devote some more time than usual. I mean, if everybody is so busy that they can't even raise their head and look at each other, they're probably not going to have the bandwidth in their life to spare some time and energy for another child or multiple children. So in that sense, I would recommend that people look at what their commitments are, how they prioritize their time, and we can be a resource to you if you want to discuss specifics of your situation. We're happy to work with you in helping make that decision. The decision is yours, but we can guide it and support you through it. Okay, another question is, what's the difference between fostering and adoption from a legal perspective? Fostering, as Brother Zishan mentioned, is like leasing. It is a short-term, temporary custody of a child during which the child stays in your home, and the objective typically is reconciliation with the biological family. In certain situations, that's not possible, so the state gives the biological parents a period of between 6 and 18 months to correct the unsafe situation in their home. If the correction does not happen, then the state moves to terminate the parental rights. And at that point, once the parental rights are terminated, the child becomes available for adoption. So in fostering also, there are 3 different categories. You can do foster only, as Sister Starla mentioned. You can do foster to adopt, or you can do straight adoption. But you have to work with an agency that takes your type of cases. Some agencies offer fostering only licensing, some agencies offer adoption only, some agencies offer the full spectrum. So when you go in, you have to ask the question, what type of foster care and adoption cases do you take? So to me personally, if I were to go and adopt or go into foster care, I would look for a foster to adopt situation, and I see that as a way of building a relationship with a child. So if you get a foster placement in your home and you build a relationship with a child, it's a good fit for your family, and the child's parental rights are getting terminated, it is in the best interest of that child to continue with the same family instead of having to adjust in a new environment. So the foster family gets the first right of refusal if they have a foster to adopt license. And if they want to proceed with the adoption, then they can file for that after termination of parental rights. So from a legal perspective, adoption is full control of a child's circumstances. So once adoption is finalized, legally there is no difference between your biological children and adopted children. During foster care, you are their temporary guardian. So you have certain restrictions, you have caseworkers and CASA and other entities coming in and out of your home. You have to be open to the idea that there are going to be multiple people interacting with you and the child in the process. Okay, here's an interesting question. Having been in this line of work, would you care to comment how it has impacted you in terms of your role as a parent to your own children and your spouse? I think this question is better directed to my children and spouse because they sometimes hurt from the level of commitment I have to this line of work. My background and training is in engineering. I'm not a social worker, I'm not a lawyer. But I was led to adoption through circumstances in life, and infertility became the best thing that ever happened to me because that led me to adopting my children. And mashallah, they've been a tremendous source of inspiration for me. And they know that, our vacation cannot start till this session ends. That's how much life is about the work that we do with adoption and foster care. Technically, I left Houston this morning, but our vacation hasn't started yet. So they understand that sometimes we have to make sacrifices because it is in the interest of other children. And they do take that seriously to the point that when we've held reunions at our house for Pakistan Adoption Group, and my daughter feels like she's responsible for babysitting every child ever adopted from Pakistan because none of this would have happened had I not adopted her. So yes, they take it very, very personally. My husband is extremely supportive. Otherwise, I couldn't do this, absolutely. Okay, how much time? Okay, Kasa, we've already answered that. Are there any local Muslim adoption agencies? The answer is not yet. New Star Kefala is the only Muslim adoption agency in the US. We are based in Buffalo, New York, but we are working towards getting licensed in Texas, and I'm very, very hopeful that by this time next year, we will be licensed in Texas, inshallah. We're working towards that at this point. Okay, so this is very interested in adoption. I have 3 kids of my own. What if I adopt and later realize it wasn't meant for me? Is there a way to backtrack? As I say, there is no undo button on life. So there is no control alt delete, there is no undo. Once you adopt a child, that child is yours. However, if you adopt a child through foster care and that ends up not being a tenable situation, there are ways which are all very painful, unfortunately, for the children as well as for the family, of, I don't know what the legal word is for rescinding an adoption. There's no divorcing an adoption. But declaring a mismatch or something like that.
Before you actually consummate in court, it's called the failed adoption. After you consummate in court, it's called wrapper charges, refusing to accept parental responsibility for the child. Some people adopt and they adopt internationally, and they actually bring the children to CPS. But there are legal consequences for that. A lot of times they pay child support, but domestically we work, and I think people that do international adoption, they work very, very hard to prepare the families and to vet the families so that that doesn't happen. You will know if this is for you or not as you go through a process, because the processes are designed to challenge you. And what happens is when you come in contact with the child, there are things inside of you that rise up that you did not know that exist. You become a mama bear or a papa bear, and you go through things that you had no clue you could ever do in life. You become a parent. A parent simply means that you take what you want and you put it on the back burner for somebody else. That's how you know, because as you go through this process, you're going to put a lot of what you want on the back burner, and that's how you're going to know that this is for you. Because other than that, you're like, I am so done.
Well, in this case, I can relate a lot of horror stories that we've come across in our initial adoption placement discussions, because families would call wanting to adopt, and then they would ask things that lead us to believe that this is probably not a good idea for this family. So somebody called recently and said that there was a 2-week delay in response to her email, and if I order something off of Amazon and there's a 2-week delay, I get all my money back. And I was like, I'm sorry, the child is not an Amazon package, nor is it a Starbucks cup, so I can't reimburse you for that. But managing expectations is a big piece of this puzzle, educating people. The reason there is the home study and the training and all the background checks, it is to help people take it seriously. It is to help screen out any kind of behaviors that might impact the welfare of the child in the long run. So we, as an agency, are obligated to provide guidance, counseling, support, and education so that the parents, when they get to the point of being responsible for the child, take that responsibility seriously, are committed to the welfare of the child, and willing to subject their desires to the back burner, as she said, and put the child's long-term best interest first and foremost. So I think, and the other thing is that there are no two ways to love a child. I know too many families who have both biological and adopted children, and there is no difference in how they love the child. In fact, usually the adopted child is more favored. And in my family, when my kids were little, the idea was that families come together through adoption. So one day I said, we're going to Pakistan, and my daughter was like, oh, so we're going to get another baby? I was like, no, that's not the only reason we go to Pakistan. And it was a shock to her system that babies can come into this world through other means other than being adopted from Pakistan, because that was our reality. And that was our way of forming as a family. So we made a very strong effort to build a sense of community around our children. And we know a lot of adoptive families, and we used to meet with them. And as children grew older, those families, all the children have had that connection, that they know other people who were adopted from similar circumstances. And it's not such a foreign concept anymore. It is part of their normal. Anybody who's a biological child is not special enough, is how it was in our house. And I remember my daughter having a problem with another classmate of hers. She found out that one of her classmates were adopted, and she's like, that's not fair. Ava's also special now, so I don't feel as special anymore. So, that's how it was. So adoption has always been celebrated in our home, to the point that children know that that is what makes them special, what makes them loved, what makes them unique. So the question is it possible to adopt an orphan from countries other than Morocco and Pakistan? Morocco and Pakistan are the only Muslim countries that have established programs that publicly place for adoption. In certain circumstances, family adoptions are possible from other countries. And the question with respect to Jordan and Syria is, I will go there. Fall of 2015, there was another viral. I have come to abhor, I don't want to use a stronger word, but abhor those viral storms that come up through social media. There was a news item that there was some masjid in New York that had 200 babies, Muslim babies from Syria, that were available for people to come and get. That's how it came across. It was like drive-up window where buy one, get one free something without any background screening or anything. There were no babies from Syria being placed. The only way children are coming unaccompanied to the US are through the Unaccompanied Refugee Minor Program. There are two agencies, Catholic Charities and Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services are the two agencies that have been authorized by the Department of State for placement of those children. So we have 20 cities across the United States that have been identified for their placement. Houston and Dallas are among those two cities. New Star Kefala has built relationships with Catholic Charities in Richmond, Virginia, and in Houston, Texas. In May, we just did a session with Catholic Charities to come out and do something like this, an awareness event, where we did recruitment for both mentors and foster parents. Typical profile of an unaccompanied refugee minor is youth, a boy, between the ages of 12 and 17. And if you think about it, a baby is not in a place where they can walk up to an UNHCR representative, register themselves as a refugee, go through the 2 to 3 years of screening and testing and background checks and still remain a baby. It's physically not possible, right? So that if unaccompanied refugee minor program is for children whose origins are not known, who we don't know if they have families who are alive or not, they come in as foster children into the US. And right now, I know the statistics about Houston, they have 65 unaccompanied refugee minors in the Houston area, of which 28 are Muslim. We need Muslim families to step up to the plate and open their homes and hearts, because what has happened over the last year is that more and more non-Muslim families have reservations about having Muslim youth from Iraq, Afghanistan, Sudan, and Syria. 2017 is the first year Syrian youth are going to be coming in through the URM program. So far, none have come. There's children from Myanmar, there's children from Eritrea, there's children from Afghanistan and Iraq and Gambia and Sudan in the program. So if we as a community are not going to open our hearts and homes to those children, how can we expect that others do? We don't have the right to expect that. The other piece of it is, these children are coming from trauma and war and difficult circumstances. They've already lost so much. We don't want them to lose their faith. We don't want them to lose their culture and their identity in the process. So we are making, New Star Kefala is building those bridges with these agencies to help place those children in Muslim families. In terms of costs for adoption, it varies. So if we're talking about cost for adoption for specifically the countries that New Star Kefala deals with, our fees are posted on the website, www.newstarkefala.org. Our brochures and my business cards are outside on the table, for the information table. So please do collect those. I can give you the general guidelines for Morocco. Our process has a fairly detailed involvement with the facilitators in Morocco, and it's $16,000 agency fee. For Pakistan, the agency fee is $6,000, and if you hire a facilitator in Pakistan, it is $8,000. So it varies. There's differences in terms of how long it takes, how long in-country stay required, and stuff like that. So please take a look at that if you're interested. Okay, this is the last question I had. Oh, we got more. Are there any children that are Muslim in Texas needing a home? Yes, at least 4 children I know of in the greater Houston area. So when we did the suitcase drive, we found out that there are 8 Muslim children in the greater Houston area that are in foster care, of which at least 4 will have their parental rights terminated this fall, between September and October. So we are looking for licensed Muslim adoptive homes for these Muslim children. If you're interested in that, please see me. I want to wrap this up really quick. Let's address, I think, okay. So that's the last question I had. I think there was a question for Sheikh Umar Salaman about in adoption in Islam, once the child reaches puberty, hijab must be observed. He had already addressed that in the session last year. Yaqeen Institute has put out those, and New Start Kefala website also has those videos from last year's session. All of these questions, the fiqh questions, were already addressed in that, so please take a look at those. And I would really like to thank all of you for being here, for being part of this conversation, acting in the best interest of the children. Hopefully, we have been able to provide you practical steps on how to move forward from here. Would you like to make any closing remarks?
Again, thank you all for allowing me to come out, and if there's anything that I can do, I'll be working with my sister colleague, and I will also connect with your experts. Again, I ask that you please, please commit this to prayer and consideration and get together. And my hope is that you all will get involved, that you will step forward, because we do need you and we want you to be with us in this, because the things that are going on, they're happening to all of us. And only when we come together and stand together for good will we see the positive things in the world happen. Other than that, this chaos is going to continue. But the faith in me that comes from my father Abraham, I share with you. And so we share our father Abraham. And for all of his descendants, we stand on that unconditional love. And I beg you once more to please commit this to prayer, that you all will take the step to come and stand with us. Amen.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much for having us here. Just wanted to conclude by saying that remember this, commit to this, put a date, put it on your refrigerator so that you can see if you are fulfilling your commitment that you made to yourself or you are still lacking. Thank you. Jazakumullah khair. On behalf of ICNA Relief, I really thank you for being here. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.